Until recently, if you needed a large amount of power, then you needed a grid. That was still the cheapest way, the most efficient way of delivering power to a rural area. Today, the technology has developed to the point where it's actually more affordable per kilowatt hour to deliver electricity with a distributed solar kit. This is the way it's going to get done for 90% of people who are off grid are going to get access through solar.
Off-grid solar has already changed the lives of millions of people around the globe. Is this the dawn of a new energy revolution? I'm Jacopo De Toni, this is the CEO series by FDI Intelligence, and today I'm here with Patrick Walsh, co-founder and CEO of Sunking, a company based in Africa that has brought off-grid solar solutions to as many as 50 million people in Africa and Asia. Patrick, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's start from the very beginning. Sunking launched in 2007. What is the problem that you initially set out to solve?
Hundreds of millions of people are still lacking basic access to electricity. So 800 million people around the world don't have an electricity connection. 600 million of those are in sub-Saharan Africa. And I think even more broadly than that, we just saw that there's really a large population of people in the world who are underserved by, big Fortune 500 companies. And we thought that, our time could be really well spent by trying to focus on people who are underserved and develop products and services that really meet people's basic needs.
Sunking was installing 10,000 solar kits per month in 2017, 100,000 in 2022, 330,000 in 2025. That's a pretty steep growing curve. What has been the turning point?
Every year, this technology just gets better and better and more affordable. And Sunking itself has been building capacity in product development, in distribution, and in financing. And you put all those technology curves together and all of those organizational development curves together, and we're just seeing this consistent, rapid growth of deployment of these solar kits. And it's incredible to see. We're now at a point where some of the places where we operate in Kenya, 1 out of 5 people in the country are using Sunking for power and light on a daily basis. We're in 11 countries in sub-Saharan Africa now, growing quickly in lots of places. With the technology becoming affordable for people, it's just it's really a rapid adoption phase.
Sunking has raised over $900 million in equity and debt funding since launch, and as I mentioned at the beginning, has brought electricity to 5 million people around in 11 countries in Africa, 2 in Asia so far. But now your ambition is to reach another 200 million people by 2030. That's a staggering figure. How are you planning to do so?
It's well over 50 million people today who are using Sunking. We're targeting 200 million, at least 200 million by 2030. Today, for example, we have 500 brick and mortar shops across 11 countries. We're talking about doubling that number over the next few years through 2030 to about 1,000 shops. Today, we have 40,000 field agents going out and installing these products. And, by 2030, we'll more than double that agent count. So first of all, it's just, boots on the ground, building out that distribution network, the servicing networks that people trust, that if they have a problem, that they can get access, come into a Sunking shop and get service. On top of that, we have to continue innovating. We have to, continue adopting the latest photovoltaic technology, the latest battery technology, semiconductors, and more. We're providing not just the solar power systems to provide energy, but we're also providing energy efficient appliances to go with those solar kits. So along with the solar kit, we'll offer an energy efficient fan for home ventilation, energy efficient refrigeration, smartphones designed for the customer in underserved areas. It's about providing this ecosystem of products, distribution, and financing so that people have access to the basics, and then moving upwards from there.
And that's a very interesting element of your business model. So you're providing electricity, bringing electricity to households in rural areas so that previously had no access to electricity. You set in motion this transformation where gradually their demand for electricity powered devices moves up the value chain. And as you mentioned, you started with the solar panels, fans, and now you're also planning to manufacture smartphones and other appliances in Africa itself. Is that right?
The appliances are actually the thing that we've started assembling locally. It's a small part of what we do. Most of our equipment is still manufactured abroad, but we have started building local assembly facilities, first in Nairobi, in Kenya, and soon in Lagos, Nigeria, to assemble some of the appliances that go with these solar kits, which is a really exciting thing. This wave of customer-led distributed solar, it's really a paradigm shift in the way that energy is delivered and energy is used, especially in countries that are still building out their electrical grids, which remain important, by the way. Electrical grids are going to remain important, but especially in places where those grids are still being built, this distributed technology, it's incredible, and it's taking off in Africa. It's even taking off in places that already have grids.
Do you expect distributed solar to allow economies, African countries, or anywhere really, that have yet to develop fully functional, comprehensive power grids to really leapfrog that stage of developing the grid and latch onto electrification without the need of that big infrastructure investment?
I think mobile phones are the classic example that people give of, mobile phone technology comes in, you don't even need fixed telephone lines anymore. That's not going to be the way things work in electrification. We're still going to need electrical grids for high density areas. Those are going to remain critical, especially for very heavy industries, for high density commercial areas, simply because there isn't enough space on the roof, in a big city to power everything underneath. Where it is going to leapfrog, where you are going to see less and less need for electrical grids, is in rural areas and in many peri-urban areas, where there is enough space on the roof. And the only thing that's preventing people from generating their own electricity is the cost of the technology, the availability of the financing, the reliability of the systems. We're entering this phase where, 10, 20 years ago, if you needed a very small amount of power in a rural area, if you needed just enough power to run a light, then you would do that with a solar kit, even 20 years ago. But, until recently, if you needed a large amount of power, then you needed a grid. There was, that was still the cheapest way, the most efficient way of delivering power to a rural area. So you would run an electrical line out there and deliver power from a power plant somewhere to the rural home or the rural business. Today, the technology has developed to the point where, if you have the latest technology and a reasonable access to financing, say, financing over 5 years, then it's actually more affordable per kilowatt hour to deliver electricity with a distributed solar kit. And so that's the leapfrogging that you're starting to see now. In many instances, not a great argument from an economics perspective to build out an electrical grid in a rural area. You'd rather do it with a distributed solar system.
And batteries have become an important part of this calculus. Solar panels, the cost of solar panels has decreased substantially over the past 20 years, but also batteries, they are starting to experience an intense degree of price decline, which also makes everything that you are mentioning even more feasible from a financial perspective.
The battery cost and reliability curves have been driven, not by energy access needs, but by first, consumer product innovation. First these batteries started to be needed by laptops and phones and things like that. And then over the last 5-10 years, we've seen more innovation because of the need, the demand from electric vehicles. But now all of that is being deployed into utility scale storage, energy storage systems for households, for businesses. And the renewable energy, the solar industry, specifically has been the beneficiary of all of this technology development in consumer and mobility. And the batteries are fantastic now. I mean, they last over a decade. They've become much more affordable. And you're even starting to see these things deployed for on-grid storage. The technology development in that area is still ongoing. And we're still seeing massive improvements year over year in the efficiency of the electronics and the reliability of these systems, and the purpose-built nature for distributed context. So there's just at every level, these technologies continue to develop, and and they stack on top of each other. They multiply together. It's not like an addition; it's a multiplication. When you get higher efficiency solar panels, higher efficiency batteries, those two things multiply together, and then you get this cost reduction that we've seen.
What is the ceiling for solar power, specifically in Africa? Around the 73% of electricity is still provided by fossil sources. Do you expect this to change pretty significantly in the foreseeable future?
The place where we're going to see it first is in these distributed contexts, in rural areas, in peri-urban areas. And that's going to start to make a real dent. I mean, you're seeing it already, even in places that are fully on-grid, where substantial fractions of the electricity production in the U.S. or in Pakistan, I think pretty much all of the electricity generation that's been added over the last couple of years has been solar. And I say it make a dent because the realistic situation is there are enormous existing sources of energy, not just for electricity, but for industrial use, for transportation. It's not a silver bullet. It's not like this is a one size fits all solution for all of the world's energy needs. But for underserved customers, it really is. This is the way it's going to get done. For 90% of people who are off grid are going to get access through solar. It's going to take more time, but we're starting to see solar take off a big chunk of that fossil fuel need. But we need to keep working. We're not. It's not going to be one size fits all, and we're still going to need grids. We're still going to need some of that older technology.
Can you give us an example of the kind of transformation that you experience with your client base when you provide your clients with access to distributed electricity? And for many of them, I guess it's the first time that they get access to electricity at all.
Many of our customers are getting access to electricity for the first time, which means they were using an oil lamp to light their house, kerosene lamp, or candles, or disposable battery-powered torches, and they were walking sometimes, multiple kilometers just to charge their mobile phone and pay somebody, every time they want to charge their phone. So it's absolutely transformative. It means that kids can study at night. It's one of the biggest things. It's just access to education. Adults don't have to rush home from the field where they're working on their farm, or rush home from work before dark so that they can get a few things done around the house. They now have more time at home with their families. Means they have more time to be productive during the day, and their livelihoods improve. If you don't have access to electricity, you're first of all, you're dealing with indoor air pollution from kerosene lamps. You're dealing with safety issues because of a lack of lighting. So just across the board, there are enormous benefits, to having electricity. I think we all understand that, and to give first-time access to many of these users is incredible.
The value chains of solar panels, as well as some of the consumer electronics appliances that you are also planning to sell to your customers, depend on China to a very large extent. But now, as you mentioned, you also plan to localize some assembly operations in the markets you operate. To what extent do you think that you can localize value chains that, again, in this particular moment in time, are largely in the hands of Chinese producers?
The short answer is we can't, but the economies overall can, and it's going to take decades, just like it took decades for China to build the manufacturing capacity that it's built. Typically that starts with local assembly, Then once you have that local assembly capability, local businesses start to build some of the raw materials, the semi-processed raw materials capabilities to feed into that local assembly. The local manufacturing capacity becomes more and more advanced over time. You're starting to see, even in China, the most advanced semiconductors are still imported, right? It's not like China has been able to localize its entire supply chain. Nobody has. Everything is distributed across the globe. But China's towards the end of that process. Some of the countries that we work in are already taking steps along that process, and it's going to be an evolution for every economy.
Are you also planning to expand into new markets?
We're entering Madagascar right now. We've signed agreements with the government of Ethiopia. Anywhere where there's a large population of people who don't have access to electricity, there's a basic rule of law where we can operate safely. Those are places where we want to be present, whether it's directly through our direct consumer operations, or in many places where we work with partner organizations to bring our products to market. We want to be present and available for people to meet their energy needs.
Anywhere else outside Africa, and maybe also in developed markets, I feel that some of your solution, both on the tech side and also on the financing side, can be well redeployed anywhere really.
I think in developed markets, realistically, there are plenty of organizations that are trying to meet those customers' needs, and we're really trying to figure out how to make this technology affordable for people who are the most underserved. So we're going to focus on places with large populations that are off grid, large populations that for whatever reason are not having their needs met.
Patrick Walsh, co-founder and CEO of SunKing, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for watching. You can follow all our coverage on our website, fdiintelligence.com, and our video interviews on our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe, and until the next time.